Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Influencing Without Authority webinar. This is a NYS and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training presentation. My name is Daniel Shook. I'll be your host, and our instructor today is Sally Pardee. At this point, I will mute everyone's phones and ways that you've logged on to keep noise to a minimum. If you have questions, you can click on the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. It's an icon with a hand in the air. Once called on, I'll unmute you and you can speak using your phone or microphone attached to your computer. I'd like you to try raising your hand now. Please click on the raise hand button. Um, Let me see, I can see some hands going up. Okay, great. So notice how you can see a hand go up next to your name in the participant panel. You can put your hand down by clicking on the raise hand button again. Great, thank you so much. At any point, you can also type any questions or comments in the chat box. As you know from when you entered, the chat box is located on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. If the chat box isn't open, please click the chat button at the bottom right. Once chat is open, make sure that everyone is selected in the send to area. Then type your thoughts in the box below. When you're finished typing, press enter. All right. So as I mentioned, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, or as many people refer to it, the partnership. Some of you may be wondering what the partnership is. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, the partnership is an organization that administers education and training programs for CSEA represented employees through a labor management cooperation. It is funded through negotiated agreements between New York State and CSEA. The partnership's mission is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. The partnership offers in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, and other education training programs, including the webinar you are attending today. In essence, the partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission it is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. You can learn more about us on our website or by calling us directly. I'll provide our contact information at the end of today's webinar. Now that you know more about the partnership, let's begin with the Influencing Without Authority webinar. I want to turn the presentation over to your instructor, Sally Pardee.
Good morning, everyone. As Daniel mentioned, my name is Sally Pardee, and I'm an instructor and curriculum designer with Echo's Instructional Design. And we design and provide educational seminars just like this one so that you can thrive and succeed in your workplace. So before we get into specifics about how you can influence without authority, I want to acknowledge that many of us experience a desire to have more influence at work. That emotion is a normal part of the human experience because our brains are wired to seek both connection and control. It's natural to want to shape our environment to match our wants and needs. So I'm curious, how often do you wish you had more influence at work? So an example of influence at work would be shifting someone else's opinion on how to handle an issue, advocating for more resources to clear out a backlog of case files, or getting leadership to approve a change in a process that you believe will save time.
Okay, I'd like you to notice that I have opened the poll. Some of you are already starting to do in the chat, which is perfectly fine. But I'd like you to notice that I've opened the polling panel on the right-hand side of the screen. Take your mouse and click on the option or multiple options that best fit, A, B, C, or D, that you feel is the best answer. When you're done, please click submit. It looks like we're getting a lot of answers in so far. I'll give everyone a chance. Okay. Close that poll. All right, looks like we're getting some good answers here. I see a lot of B sometimes, A frequently, some rarely. Sally, what are you seeing?
Oh, yeah, I see all of that. I think we all have a desire. We have information that we can share, we can give input. I think it is very a common and normal thing to feel that we want to influence in our workplace. So now that you're thinking about it, what is one thing you'd like to have more influence over at work? Shortly, we'll launch a word cloud activity where you can share your response with the group in one or two words. You can share more than one response if you choose.
Please type your ideas about one thing you'd like to have more influence over at work in the chat box. And again, you can find the chat panel at the right-hand side of the screen. And if it isn't open, please click on the chat button at the bottom right.
Mm,
Seeing some good answers come in here. Planning for efficiency, strategic planning, workflow.
right.
How everything should be done consistently for everyone after than the dependent person. Interesting. What
Well,
else are you noticing?
these are great inputs. And thanks. We have a very active group here. Thanks for everybody for participating. I know there have been times I've wanted to have input on deadlines, flexibility, what types of technology we use. A lot of people are talking about efficiency and workflow, um, input of common sense, staff advancement. Um, really good ideas. Uh, this webinar will help you understand the foundational elements of influence and find ways you can develop yours, even in situations where you don't have direct authority. So you might be wondering what it means to influence without authority. For the purpose of this webinar, let's describe it as when others trust, support, and listen to you and your ideas, not because you're the boss, but because they believe you consistently hold the best intentions for others and the situation. What's your reaction to this description? If you like it, you can give it a thumbs up, or you can choose another reaction that best represents your reaction.
Yeah, so please click on the reactions button or the smiley face to select a reaction. This button can be found at the bottom of your screen. You can also tell us what you think in the chat box, as always. Okay, seeing some thumbs ups, smiley face. Oh, a nice party horn. Okay. Seeing a lot of thumbs up. I thought I saw one shaky hand, but what else are you seeing, Sally?
Well, that's it. That's it. Thanks for sharing. And I'm glad to see that this definition aligns with your understanding.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, research conducted by a woman named Vanessa Bones, a professor at Cornell University and author of the 2021 book, You Have More Influence Than You Think, shows most people underestimate how much others pay attention to and are influenced by them. This is because employees tend to assume that their influence depends on their roles or their titles, and that's especially true in organizations with more formal or rigid organizational hierarchies. But her research also shows that people's underconfidence about their influence can lead them to search for ways to gain more of it, when really what they need to do is get better at recognizing the influence they already have and continue building on their strengths. Even people in positions of formal authority who have direct reports and leadership responsibilities can underestimate their influence. They often incorrectly assume people they supervise feel more comfortable speaking up to ask for help or get answers or challenge ideas than they actually do. Bones' research showed that people who assume the good, who actively look for ways to build their reputation, enhance their relationships, and seek out ways to give and take, find it is possible to influence without authority. By the end of our time together, you'll know how to identify your strengths and become a credible resource in the workplace. Build relationships with coworkers across the organization to overcome workplace challenges and recognize opportunities for influencing in your workplace. Let's take a closer look at the agenda for this webinar. We'll be exploring three main topics. The first, influence, begins with me, focuses on how your assumptions, strengths, credibility, and expertise are all areas you can directly manage and maximize to develop your influence. We'll then explore ways that you can build your influence by intentionally strengthening and expanding your workplace relationships. And finally, we'll talk about how you can find opportunities to influence through your own often daily interactions. Ultimately, this workshop focuses on helping you recognize the influence you already have and gives you ways to help you further increase it. As we begin to look at influence more closely, it's important not just to learn how to build your influence, but also recognize the foundation that it's built upon. Think of these four elements as the groundwork for everything else. First, you want to assume the good about others, yourself, the situation, and the organization. When you begin with a frame of mind where you assume the good, it's much easier to approach things with a perspective of what's possible versus what's not. Second, you can use your strengths, which could also be seen as utilizing what you already have. Third, you can build relationships, especially relationships that are built on mutual trust, respect, and connection. And fourth, give and take, which is also known as reciprocity. We'll explore each throughout the webinar and how you can build on this foundation. As we go through this section, Influence Begins with Me, keep in mind the research I previously mentioned that points to the fact that your mindset about what and who you influence matters. Your reputation plays a large part too. Fortunately, both mindset and reputation can be developed through your consistent words and actions. Have you ever assumed something about a person and later discovered that you were wrong?
All right. If you've experienced this, please click on the raise hand button. And again, this button can be found at the bottom of your screen. As always, you can always put it in the chat box as well.
Okay,
Yep. Yep. Seeing some people raising their hands.
great. I know I have for sure. And I know um, many of us have judged something too quickly or harshly. And we're not here today to criticize ourselves or others about that behavior, but instead to recognize how frequently this happens and the effect it has on our ability to influence. When we assume the bad, or we can stay or feel stuck, thinking we have less influence than we may have, and it makes it more difficult to evaluate a situation and look for opportunities to influence others' minds, hearts, and hands. Often, what drives us to jump to the wrong conclusion is incomplete or inaccurate information, our assumptions, or previous experiences. Sometimes relying too much on the past can make it difficult to see beyond immediate circumstances to take on a different perspective. But when you're working to strengthen your influence, a foundational skill to develop is to assume the good.
And just a reminder that if you tap the button again, your hand will go down. Just
Okay, assuming the good requires us to evaluate our actions and to challenge any initial bias we might have about ourselves, others, or the situation. A few techniques to help you assume the good include recognizing your mindset. Use your self awareness to notice, are you feeling negative, positive, or neutral? Your mindset influences your thoughts, and your thoughts influence your perceptions and actions. You want to challenge your assumptions. What assumptions have you made? What assumptions have others made? How do you actually know if they're true? If you struggle with this, a good tip is to write them down and look them over. You can also ask yourself the question, what else might be true? This has a way of helping you explore what else might be possible. A few other techniques to try are expressing empathy for yourself and others. Think about what empathy looks like in action. It might include extending kindness or giving the benefit of a doubt. It might be making space for yourself, and leaving space for others to bring their full selves to work every day. Empathy is remembering to acknowledge your humanity and the humanity of other people, and to keep in mind that everyone has a full inner life just like you do. Having positive intentions might feel intangible, but if you don't verbalize your intentions, they do find a way to surface. Others can sense when you intend good. So if you catch yourself thinking negative thoughts, stop them right there and consider the alternative. Don't let that negativity train get away from you. Finding common ground is a proven technique to bring groups of people together. Focus on shared goals or outcomes or what brings you together instead of what separates you. Vanessa Bones' research talked about how people may not recognize how much others are influenced by them, which leaves them thinking that they don't have as much influence as they do. One way to begin to recognize where you already have influence or the potential to expand it is to think about your strengths. Think about it. What are you already good at? For example, are you an expert on a specific subject and good at sharing information? Or do people look to you for how to complete a task? Maybe you're good at smoothing things over after a disagreement in the office, or maybe you're the person who knows the best way to get one of your struggling coworkers back on track after they've experienced frustration at work. So, can you type some of your strengths in the chat box?
All right. Seen some good responses come through here. Organization is huge. Willingness to train others. What else are you seeing?
Yeah, attention to detail and the ability to be logical, a lot of, as you said, organization, resourceful, and the office mom, that's a important role. It does exist. Flexibility and willingness to learn things and be engaged. Strong teamwork. It's always great to know that you can be a good team player and open to learn. I'm so glad everybody can recognize their strengths. Ability to get along with people, ability to clarify and ask questions. That always helps other people as well. And liking your work and having a good attitude. These are fantastic. It's a really wide range of strengths.
Hmm. Thank you, everyone,
So
for sharing.
yeah, thank you. Exactly. Good and sharing knowledge. These are all great. So sometimes it can be challenging to recognize our strengths at work. A few ways that might help you more easily recognize yours is to reflect on times when you've experienced success at work, especially times when you've influenced someone or something. You can use these moments to steer you toward what you are already good at. You can listen for compliments. For example, if a coworker says, "You're so good at putting clients at ease," that might be a clue to one of your strengths. And you want to notice when others ask for your input or expertise. Do they tend to come to you for the same types of input or support? How might that help you build your influence? You can ask for feedback from other people. You could always try new things. And a lot of people talked about that. You can get curious and keep learning. And you want to pay attention to when you feel joy, fulfillment, or a sense of accomplishment. And these feelings often align with your strengths. Maybe you could show something that you've mastered recently. When it comes to influence at work, credibility and expertise matter, as does your reputation in general. Strengthening it is essential. And you can do this by acting professionally, like maintaining your composure during times of frustration and stress, which is not always easy, and being aware of your tone of voice, your body language, and your attitude. You can also be reliable and consistent. Keeping your word and commitment goes a long way when building credibility with your peers and leaders, as does consistent attendance. Being at work on time, ready to go, and doing a good job are contributing factors too. In part, your credibility is displayed through your actions. When people see you stepping up and taking the initiative, it strengthens your reputation as a team player and as a good performer. An example of taking initiative could be resolving a situation that you are able to handle rather than leaving it for the next person to take care of. Or you can help clean up a messy break area after a team celebration. Sometimes stepping up only takes a few extra minutes of your time, but it means a great deal to your coworkers and peers. People who step up frequently find themselves in a position to influence more often. You can also build your reputation as a reliable team member when you proactively share your knowledge and resources, which I know a lot of people spoke about as well. Things change at work often. Being viewed as a person who embraces change can help you build influence with your peers and leaders. This is where assuming the good meets the moment. When you are able to recognize that good can be found in moments of change, you have an opportunity to influence yourself and others. And finally, you want to adopt a learning mindset. For example, be an observer, watch and learn from others around you. Ask questions and make connections between how what you do affects others in your department or throughout the organization. Remember to develop your knowledge and skills continuously. Participate in training sessions just like this one, and take advantage of mentoring opportunities, stretch assignments, or special projects. Ultimately, be intentional about educating yourself and upskilling to strengthen your credibility and expertise. Does anyone have questions about building credibility and expertise? You can type them in the chat box.
Okay, not seeing any questions at this moment, but we'll give more time for questions at the end.
Great. People with influence at work know how to do their job well and know the organization well too. Take a moment for and think about what this means for you as an employee. What does this look like for you? How can you improve your credibility or expertise?
So please, in the chat box, type your ideas about how you can improve your workplace credibility or expertise. Educating yourself on the topics. Yep. Confidence is huge. Follow through. A lot of great responses here. Asking for help.
Right.
Oh, I like that. Instead of saying I don't know, saying I will find out.
Ah,
Educate, educate, educate. We're all about that at the partnership. What else are you
exactly.
seeing, Sally?
Yeah, all of these people are really on target here. Um, and I think we can help each other. This is terrific. Um, Following through on timelines, projects, being a person of your word, sharing tasks with a coworker, supporting your coworkers, students, whoever you interact with. Asking for help is a good one because people get to know you, and by being the go-to person, performing your best, doing your work on time, acknowledging when you make a mistake. That takes a certain amount of humility, but it makes life easier for everyone. And fixing your mistakes, owning up and fixing your mistakes. That definitely helps build your credibility and expertise. And a lot of people talked about learning new skills through training as a way to improve your credibility and expertise. It's terrific. And so now we're at the building relationships part of the curriculum. So far, we talked about how influence begins with you, assuming the good, recognizing your strengths, and building your credibility and expertise. Well, now we'll look at specific ways you can build your influence by intentionally strengthening and expanding your workplace relationships. At its core, influence requires involvement with other people. Think about it. If you didn't need to engage with others to get what you wanted, there would be no one and nothing for you to influence. What we know about workplace influencers is that they build relationships by focusing less on themselves and what they want and more on others. They are committed to getting to know the people around them and being active listeners, includers, and helpers. Research shows one way to build new relationship is to ask for help from people outside your circle. I find it fascinating that research also shows that people tend to feel embarrassed when asking for support or help, so they don't ask. And when they do, they ask someone they already know and are comfortable with, repeatedly going back to the same pool of people. For example, one way for you to expand your influence is to offer support to a new person on a team with a task you know well, or when it's appropriate to ask for help, opinions, insights, or buy in outside your circle of influence, you ask other people. People are socially motivated to say yes to helping others when it is within their authority to do so. And I'm curious, does being asked to contribute make you feel valued and appreciated?
So if feeling asked to contribute makes you feel valued and appreciated, please raise your hand. And if it's a different reaction, please use that one, or you can always type in the chat box as I see people are doing now. And I did see the question before that we can try to get to a little later about, does it seem to inspire others? We can address that at the end of the webinar. But we also have a lot of people saying sometimes, yes, absolutely, definitely, depending. What do you think, Sally?
Yeah, but this is, I think generally people do feel valued and appreciated when they are asked for input. Stepping outside of our comfort zone to help others or to contribute in a way that is new might feel a bit uncomfortable or awkward at the beginning, but in time it can lead to feelings of appreciation and help build respect and connection with others. People often underestimate the positive effects that asking others for their opinions, insights, or expertise can have on building relationships. You might want to try taking breaks with different people than your usual crowd, participating in a project or committee, volunteering for a shift or covering a schedule, training a new coworker or a new team member, attending a social gathering like a team building event or a retirement party. Basically, get out there and mingle with other people. Take a minute to think about your workplace. How can you expand your circle? What is something specific that you could do?
Yeah, so please, once again, in the chat box, type some ideas of how you can expand your workplace relationships. Volunteering for committees, networking.
Volunteering.
Yeah, job shadow in other departments is great.
Mm, when they have that
Use it for
opportunity, that's
walks.
great.
Yep, we take a lot of walks at the partnership when we can.
Oh, that's great. Attending social events.
Food is always good.
Yes, pizza and cookies. Great, great icebreakers. All right. You came up with really, really good ideas. And I'm going to share a few more practical ways you can begin to do this. Widening your network is not just about knowing more people, it's also about being more inclusive of people, ideas, and opportunity because that helps you expand your organizational awareness. Organizational awareness is basically knowing the ins and outs of your workplace, who does what, how things get done, and what matters most. This is an important aspect of growing your influence. In your role, you may not always have the answer or the authority, but when you have strong organizational awareness, you know who to go to. Organizational awareness is important because when you understand the workplace culture and the motivations of others, you can make more informed choices and suggestions, a great way to build your influence. And that's one thing I really wish I had learned as a young person in the workplace, that I was focused on the project right in front of me, and it took quite a while to get to know the larger picture. But once you know the larger picture, you kind of know where you fit in, where you might want to go, who can help you, who you can help. So keep your eye on being more inclusive of people, ideas, and opportunities. So, are there any questions about widening your network?
Yeah, if there's any questions at this point, please throw them in the chat box. We'll try to address them. Okay, don't seem to be seeing any coming through at this point, but again, there'll be time for questions at the end.
Thank you. Okay. So, you might recall that the definition of influencing without authority we are using as a foundation for our learning today referenced when others trust, support, and listen to you and your ideas. When it comes to influence, trust is essential. Without trust, it is extremely difficult to influence others, especially when it comes to influencing without authority. Although it can take time to build trust, you can speed up the process by acting with integrity. For example, not taking advantage of a loophole in the process, even when that shortcut could save you time and you think you could get away without anyone finding out. Actively listening, avoiding assumptions, gossip, and rumors. And remember, you want to assume the good. And I know it can be a temptation to complain about whoever is upsetting you at work, but that is looked upon as gossip. And if you don't gossip, then people know that you're not going to be gossiping about them either. And it just keeps your reputation clean. Trust is also earned when you are authentic, consistent, and reliable. You demonstrate respect and encourage and support others. Trust also requires give and take, which is known as reciprocity, good communication skills, and a healthy dose of vulnerability. It's time to learn how you can be on the lookout for opportunities to influence. Believe it or not, they are all around you, and usually best to start with small actions and small moments. At the start of the webinar, you were asked, what's one thing you'd like to have more influence over at work? And you shared, I guess, process. I'm looking for it, sorry.
Organization.
That's it, organization, thank you. Um, so at this point, some of you may have realized that you have more influence than you originally thought, and others may be beginning to recognize opportunities and ways you can influence in your role. There are many ways you can influence the workplace, some big, some small, but all make an impact. For example, your attitude influences others. When you come to work positive, energized, and ready to go, that influences the attitudes and energy of those around you. Friendly conversations you have with peers and leaders contribute to a culture that's welcoming and inclusive, where people feel safe to speak up and share. Raising awareness about an opportunity for improvement to a process can ultimately lead to a new and better way to do something. Bringing awareness to a safety concern so it can be addressed has a ripple effect on people and outcomes. Offering great internal or external customer service can have a lasting impression on your organization. I just shared a few examples of ways you can influence without authority. Now it's your turn to think about what you can influence in your role. And you can share your thoughts in a few words. And remember, you can share more than one idea.
Yeah, so again, in the chat box, before we ask you what you'd like to, but what are the things you can influence in your role right now? Hmm. Yep. Not participating in the gossip, sharing ideas. Seem being positive and attitude, problem solving. Being welcoming is always good. A lot of really good responses here. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
these are
everyone.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Being positive, having a welcoming environment, being the go-to person, sharing your previous experiences. We all have a wealth of knowledge that it's worthwhile sharing with other people, um, and shutting down gossip. Um, it's a great way to make the workplace more open and welcoming to everyone,
Mm.
and welcoming new people, and being a resource, sharing your knowledge, a safe space to ask questions and admit mistakes when it's easy to come to someone and ask for help and not knowing that they're going to get a safe response. That's very valuable to the workplace.
Hmm.
And knowing that you will follow up when someone brings you an issue
Mm.
relating to others. These are terrific.
Yeah. Being the gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper, yeah. And creativity and positivity.
Excellent.
That looks like it. Great. Thank you. One thing many people wish they could have more influence over is their boss or other decision makers. Influencing our leaders can provide us with a greater sense of control over our work and may help us feel like what we offer matters. Being valued and respected feels good, and it can lead to greater employee satisfaction. When it comes to influencing decision makers specifically, keep a few things in mind. Avoid ambiguity and use facts as your baseline when sharing information or a problem. An even better approach is to offer ideas and suggestions for possible ways to address the situation. It's important to share your ideas, but be open to others as well. Understand there's also often a need to give and take. Also, focus on the big picture and the greater good, remembering to let go of the past so that you can concentrate on the future. You want to be realistic about what's possible, and remember that your leader also has decision makers that they seek to influence. Speak respectfully about concerns. Sometimes it's less about what you say, but how you say it. And lastly, support the final decision. Even when you speak up and it's not acted upon, it doesn't mean you didn't influence in some way. Over time, practicing these behaviors improves the likelihood of gaining influence with those who do have positional authority. Sometimes, when people don't think they have influence, they unintentionally erode the influence they do have by participating less. Unfortunately, the action of sitting it out can further eat away at their influence, creating a vicious cycle of less influence, leading to less contribution, which ultimately leads to less influence. The good news is you don't have to go down this path. It's within your control to develop your influence at work. Positive contributions look like thinking beyond the me and what I alone need or like, finding common ground and objectives and building from there, looking for mutually beneficial approaches, embracing opportunities to learn and grow, actively seeking opportunities to add to the workplace culture, and embracing change. And remember, when you seek to contribute in a positive way, you're applying the foundational elements of influence. You're assuming the good, you're using your strengths, you're building relationships, and you're understanding the need to give and take. Some other fun facts about influence can be found when you learn more about the topic. One of them is that giving sincere compliments and praise builds relationships and helps you gain influence, which makes sense. Unfortunately, people often hold back from offering a compliment because they think it might make the other person uncomfortable to receive it. So, the compliment giver's own concerns may prevent them from acting in a way that would actually build their influence. Another interesting fact is that when we ask someone to help, we drastically underestimate the amount of effort that person is willing to give to help us. Essentially, we think they'll help a little, when in reality, they go above and beyond our expectation. Again, this misperception leaves us overlooking opportunities to engage with others, build connections, and expand our circle at work. One reason people don't ask others for their input, help, or support is because of a fear of rejection. But if you ask more often, you'll begin to worry less about getting shot down or rejected. Lastly, when people do go out on a limb and ask others for their input or support, they tend to use non face to face methods like email or text messaging. And I have to say, that is something that I am guilty of. I find email and text messaging more efficient or quicker or convenient, but people tend to be influenced more in person than through virtual methods. Face to face requests are 34 times more successful than email. So that's a very good advice that I'm going to take. So the next time you're looking to influence your coworker to improve a process or make a decision or volunteer to co chair a retirement party, do your best to ask in person. And if you can't, pick up the phone and make the call. So, as we get ready to wrap up this Influencing Without Authority webinar, I want you to think back to the start of the session when I asked you the question, what's one thing you'd like to have more influence over at work? And think about your response to that question. And now I'd like you to consider this one. What actions are you willing to take to build your influence at work?
And so once again, please type at least one idea in the chat box, and it's okay to share more than one thing you're going to try. You can sincere compliments, being a little less guarded, speaking up. I like the compliment in front of others is a good point.
That's a great point because everybody likes
Hmm.
to get praise. Why not?
Hmm.
Especially if they deserve it. That's fantastic.
Confidence. Yeah, asking more questions.
Picking up the phone. Yeah.
Seeing a lot of confidence coming through.
Networking,
Mhm.
asking more questions.
A lot of really good responses here. A lot of good
Yeah,
actions people are willing to take.
yeah, these are terrific. And they were all things that we were talking about: listening, being active listening, have a great attitude, um, being able to share your time. Yeah, to asking if someone would like some help, offering help socializing with the wider circle and going to those luncheons. Um, and uh, Other ideas would be supporting your boss's final decision, if even if it's not something that you initially liked. It shows you're a team player and that you can be somebody relied upon. Um, Thinking of others, sharing new things, and raising
Hmm.
awareness. Terrific.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing.
Thanks. Such an active group. Thank you very much. So, as we wrap up today, I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with us. Before we move to the question and answer period, I'd like to turn this over to our webinar host who will talk to you about upcoming webinars and course evaluation. Actually, sorry, one more thing before that. There's a handout that I think it comes in your initial materials. Um, and I've done other webinars, and I always love the handouts that come with the webinar because it's a one-page summary of everything that we learned today. What I've done is I take a picture of it. It's on my phone. When I want to think about it and refresh my memory, I can just have it accessible to me. It also could be in my email, but I would say you can rely on these handouts. So
Mhm.
now I'd like to turn this over to Daniel, who will talk to you
Yeah.
about upcoming webinars and the course evaluation.
Yeah, thank you for reminding them about the handout as well. Yeah, we sometimes we like to print those out and tack them up in our office as well as a reminder. They're very handy. So yes, thank you. If you have any questions after today's webinar, please remember you can call the partnership at the number you see on your screen. You are also welcome to email us. I'd also like to mention that we have more upcoming webinars. If you like this one, you may want to check the partnership's website for a list of other webinars and upcoming courses. You can also scan the QR code on the screen with your phone to be taken to our website directly. So at this point, we'd like to open it up for any questions.